Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the special council meeting tonight, February the 23, 2022. I'd like to welcome Deputy Mayor and my fellow councillors. We also have our CAO, Rob Philpott, with us tonight, and we have our engineer from Tech Services, Aaron McDonald, and Linda Stevenson from Tech Services. And members of the public, welcome, and our viewing audience on YouTube, welcome. And I understand Carl McLean and a number from the other members of the media will be watching on YouTube tonight. So we'll continue on. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor McDougall and seconded by Councillor Adams. Any questions? All in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary nay. Carried. Okay, we got the first meeting is meeting number 1. And I'll turn it over to the Chair of Planning Board, Councillor Brian McFeely. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship, and welcome, folks. And just a little preface, I guess, before we get into the meeting, just to sort of talk a little bit about process here. We sort of read the meeting in the background and everything into the meeting, and then we invite the applicant to say a few words, and then we open the floor for the public to speak. And I just really want to emphasize that this, as we go through the process here, this is the first part of the process. There'll be no decisions made tonight, but it's the public's opportunity to express their views, and we really encourage you to do so, because this is your opportunity, and we do want to hear those views. So I encourage you to not to be shy, to come to the mic and express how you feel about this. So with that, we will, and with your permission, Your Worship, I'll remain seated closer to the mic so people can hear me better.
That's fine.
We'll move right into the public meeting number 1, and it's official zone plan and zoning amendment for 395 Brophy Avenue. The background: the City of Summerside has initiated an application for a portion of PID number 322339 to amend the city official plan from Parkland land use to residential land use, and the zoning bylaw from Parkland P zone to high density residential R4 zone. The purpose of the zoning amendment is to allow apartment buildings in proposed R4 zone. As a result of the proposed rezoning, the Parks and Greenspace plan will require an amendment. The Parks and Greenspace amendment will be addressed as a separate process. So the proposed official plan amendment is to change the land use from Parkland land use to residential land use, and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to change the zoning from Parkland P zone to high density residential R4 zone. And the map of the subject property is attached there as well. The application was advertised in the February 8th, 2022 edition of The Guardian, and letters were mailed to property owners within 60 meters or 200 feet of the subject properties. So Parkland, the P zone, the current zone, the purpose of this zone is to accommodate parks and other parkland uses. I'm not going to read into the record all the different permitted uses. It's up there on the map, but folks can see that. It defines the P zone permitted uses, and there is no, I guess, discretionary uses. The development standards shall be determined on an individual basis by the development officer, but on the applicant's request, they may be viewed by council for their determination. So high density residential R4 zone, the proposed zoning, the purpose of this zone is to provide for high density housing in the form of apartments, as well as housing in the form of single family, semi-detached duplex dwellings, row housing, townhouse, and other compatible uses. And the permitted uses are listed there under the R4 zone permitted uses. And the discretionary uses in the R4 zone are listed there as well, basically tourism establishment or an inn. And conditional uses subject to the development officer's approval include home-based business, tourist establishment, secondary suites. So now is the time in the meeting where we would invite the applicant to make comment, and I would invite the CAO of the city, Rob Philpott, to come forth and And as with the case with all people who speak, we would ask you to state your name and your residence, your address, and as well, when you're done speaking, there's wipes there. If we would ask you to wipe the mic. I think we have the cleanest mic in Summerside, so it seems to be a lot of people speaking at it lately. So the floor is yours, Mr. Philpott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, Mayor and all members of council and members of the public. This particular piece of land that's owned by the city, as Councillor McFeely has said, is zoned parkland. And I guess the reason why we're here this evening is because about two and a half years ago, we received an unsolicited expression of interest in the property. And what we did at that time was we had an internal discussion as to whether we felt it was deemed worthy to sell the property in question. And we had made the determination in consultation with City Council that we felt it could be sold. So we undertook a public process to do so. And that public process involved listing it with a real estate agent who would then handle any expressions of interest or inquiries on the property. We entertained various expressions of interest, various offers that were made on the property. Council had provisionally accepted an offer on the property, and when I say provisionally, it means it's subject to certain conditions, and one of those conditions was that it was subject to the property being rezoned from parkland to residential, in this case R4. And basically that's where we are at this point in time. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to, first of all, bring this request forward on behalf of the city. We also are going to hear from the developer a little bit later on about his vision for the property, and then we'll open it up to any members of the public that want to ask any questions going forward. So before I sit down, if there's any questions, I'd be pleased to take them.
Yep. Why would you not?
Should come to the microphone, no.
Oh,
Yeah, we should record everything. Everything is being recorded, eh?
So my name's Kathy McGinnis, and we own a property very near this parkland that we were told was always going to be parkland when we bought this land and developed it into Chesapeake Brophy. So my question is, two, why would you not have the meeting to say, are we going to change this land from parkland to apartment land? And why wouldn't the people already in the area be given the chance to know about this? You gave it to a real estate agent, but none of us knew about it. I didn't anyway, or my husband. And we own property right there. Oh, do you want to?
That's okay. A little bit of back and forth here. So, I guess to answer your question, ma'am, I guess that's part of the reason why we're here tonight. We have a process for selling properties and rezoning of properties that is very clearly outlined in provincial legislation and also in city bylaws. And really the first opportunity for members of the public to be able to weigh in with any, I guess, feedback or input into this process is this evening. And that's the process that we're following is outlined both in provincial legislation and our own bylaws, and that's how the notification proceeds.
So okay. So to me, if you're gonna sell a piece of land that's not zoned properly, shouldn't you make sure that the people that have invested in the area know that you're gonna change the zoning and you're gonna put in something that maybe the rest of us don't agree with? And isn't it, and I don't want to sound crude, but isn't it ass backwards? Shouldn't you get the zoning first and see if everybody agrees with it before you sell the land? Pretty much
Yeah.
so.
I mean, there's a number of ways you can do it. I guess at the time, when we received this expression of interest, we felt that if it were to proceed and we did receive, and then we did provisionally agree to selling the property, then we would undertake our process of this process that we're in right now, right?
But it's left everybody else who's already invested in this property when there was nothing there. It was a piece of vacant land when we bought it. So we didn't know about this land being for sale. Nobody contacted any of us or anything. And we have senior housing there. So go ahead.
Yeah, Bill McGinnis. No, I'm just, the concern, I think, was that it's Parkland. I think that is probably the real problem with it, is the fact that we can take parkland, very little parkland in the city, really. I've been up here for the last 35 years with this same discussion. I have property in Maple, they're gonna put an oil tank facility behind where the eco park is. We fought against that. It's just like, you know, it seems like the way, and maybe, you know, like you say, Phil, you're following a procedure that maybe should be changed somewhat, because if we had some, you know, if we had some input before this is sold, I mean, it's just hard to imagine that Parkland, so everyone here voted on that, like all the councillors voted that Parkland should be sold in that area?
Did you all vote on that? So who decided the parkland should be sold?
I don't mean to, I just.
Go ahead, Councillor.
We would have had meetings and it would be in the minutes, right? Like, but this is the first meeting that we're having on it, so tonight is when we vote.
Yeah,
So
no,
the-
Phil mentioned you had meetings and all the councillors agreed to sell the land.
But can
Yeah.
I just so everybody's clear, this was publicly advertised, right? Like in the real estate?
It was publicly
guides and so on.
advertised, and
Okay, right, I just wanted to make
and
sure of that a little bit.
you know, I think, you know, we're following the process as CIO Philpott indicated, that is the process that we presently have and we need to follow in terms of
That's the problem,
the
I guess,
rezoning
Seems to be the problem,
Yeah.
especially when you're dealing with Parkland, I think
but-
especially, because there's so little.
But this
parking.
is the first stage of that process. This is the opportunity for public input. So the process basically is, you know, we will hear from people tonight.
But you see, Brian, what I mean by the process, is the process flawed if we
You
have
know.
to be here fighting against this
Something that's
development.
already
We're
been
not
done.
against the developers, I think, we're developers ourselves.
Yeah,
We've
no,
been
I
doing it our whole life.
understand
We've been
that.
on both sides, so we know what it's like.
Yeah.
And I know I get
Um,
letters, like, we have property in Moncton, we have property in Charlottetown, we have property in Summerside.
Understood?
I get a letter from me saying, okay, in Moncton, something's gonna happen, you're a neighbor, we wanna let you know. We get these. I even got a letter beside Gerald Street in Charlottetown, somebody was putting a deck up. I got a letter to notify me, are you okay with this, basically? So this just seemed to be happening where it's already been decided, this land's gonna be changed from Parkland to
No,
Parkland.
I don't think it has been decided.
No
I-
vote on that.
This is the
There's no
first,
vote on it.
the first step of a process. It'll go to planning board from here for a recommendation to council. So there's still 2 more steps in the process after this.
But we shouldn't have to fight
And,
when it's already been sold.
So,
Has it already been sold?
Well, there was something on Facebook,
Oh.
that's how I found out about it. There was something on Facebook advertised, this new development coming to this area, and I looked and I said, well, that's right behind us, why didn't I know about this?
The land hasn't been sold. There is
Okay.
No.
there is an agreed purchase and sale agreement that has a number of conditions on it, and one of them is a rezoning.
It's
So
rezoning.
if council decides not to rezone the property through this public process, then it will remain Parkland.
yeah, so,
But don't you think it would have been nice if Andrews Lodge had been notified, if, the people around us, like me and Bill, we've got 30 units right there that we put there when nothing else was there. And it would have been nice to have been notified, hey, this land is going to go up for sale. We might have even said, okay, I'm gonna buy that land just to protect it, so that I have some control about making sure what goes in there is what I like.
Mr. and Mrs. McGinnis, if you don't mind, I think that's part of this process, that you guys were notified through, however process, you're here tonight, right? And now we're trying to get the information from the public and from neighbors, whoever, to try to work through this process. No decision has been made at all. So it is, I think it's pretty common that a purchase and sale agreement would be in place based on scenarios. So if we don't meet those criteria, then we're not talking. If we would have notified you previously, we still would have had this conversation, right?
But it would have been.
And it would have been with everybody around. So
Yeah.
it is part of the process.
No,
It
I
might
think-
not
I think
be.
so. I think that what I see, I think more is that the, you know, is Parkland and the decision that was made by, I guess, everyone here to sell it.
I'll speak to my recollection
We
of
agreed
how
to
this.
go through the process.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there was a expression of interest in the property, and that's how we agreed to continue the process, to see what interest was there and what could or could not, however you want to look at it,
Yeah.
possibly happen.
Always recognizing that we needed to go through this process and have public input into the process. So, and I know you may not necessarily agree with the process, but it is the process as it exists today. Your point is taken, and you
And-
know that.
I think especially with Parkland.
Yeah, like.
I-
I really
Yeah.
feel Parkland should be somehow, if it's a, you know, where we did variance,
How long have we
Yeah.
owned Brophy? Like,
05.
okay, so we bought it in 2005. We were told that was Parkland. We were told that was gonna remain Parkland. It was never even in our radar that something like this would happen.
But nothing happened yet.
Can I ask who told you that it would always be Parkland? Like a real estate agent or?
No, we bought directly from the city. There was no real estate agent involved.
Who was that?
God, 2005. You were here, Basil,
That's
but I
2000.
don't know if anybody else was.
You must remember.
No,
that.
I was.
Not us.
It was 2004, really. We bought it in 2004.
One of the
Councillor
things,
Ramsey.
yes, one of the things that I'd like to say, Kathy, and thank you for coming in, and thank everyone for coming in, because this whole process needs to take place so we know what decisions we're going to make in the end, so we hear everybody's story. But there was a piece in the Guardian and Saltwire about 2.5 weeks ago, that was, I think, a provincial decision that was made. If anything happens up there, if the construction starts and the buildings are built, they agreed to put a 16 of those units would be social housing. That's what the provincial government released. So with that, they got hold of me to find out what's that about. So what it was about was simply to say, there's someone who might like to build there, there's a contractor that would like to build there. Province has agreed to put these social houses there, but it still has to go to council. So all the things you heard out there are from the provincial government and their agreement to do the social housing. And then the reaction of me was, because that's my ward. So I wanted to let the people know what was happening, and I got a number of phone calls to clarify what was happening. And in the interview, and also to the folks that I talked to, I said, it's going to council. There are no decisions made. Nobody's on anybody's side. It's just, this is what's happening. This is what's proposed to the city. And now we have to find out what you folks are thinking, what the developer's thinking. Is that going to be an appropriate situation for there? And so that, really, it's just step number one.
Yeah, it would have been nice, the first step, though, I think, and this may not be how it's done, but is to meet with everybody in the area probably
Or send
first.
a letter to
Before
us.
you say, hey, let's sell.
But weren't there letters sent, and that's why everybody's here?
No, the letters to get a variant, right? A variance, isn't it? Letters to get the land.
I guess I'd have to ask,
The letters to get the land from Parkland to apartments. It's not, should we sell Parkland? Right?
were there
So-
letters sent, Linda? Maybe we could.
Councillor
it's okay.
Linda,
Go ahead, Linda.
The letters were sent out for the public meeting tonight
Right.
for the rezoning from Parkland to R4.
Yeah, I'm not debating.
Yeah.
Councillor
I'm debating the fact of selling Parkland. That's what I'm saying.
and I think that's,
That's,
recognize that, Bill. I
Okay.
think that's another debate.
Yes.
We're in the process tonight that we need to
yes.
follow
Well, that's what I
through.
mean, we're beyond that
I think
debate.
in the future, and this
Yeah.
is just a recommendation, if you're going to do something that has parkland or nature land or whatever, and there's a bunch of neighbors and people that it's directly gonna affect, it would be nice if you guys contacted the people involved in this. It's gonna affect my people that are up there that have chosen that for their home. It doesn't affect me, I don't live up there.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and as Linda said, the letters did go out, but as you're suggesting, you would have preferred to see an earlier process, and
That's all I'm saying. And then we're not,
so we
you're
would,
fighting, I don't like fighting,
Yeah.
After the
against,
fact.
against something,
Yeah.
It's like we're
No.
I wanna be
fighting,
for things.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like we're fighting after the decision's already been made.
no, I can assure you, there's
Yeah.
been no decision made. It's certainly, and I think I can speak for all of council, that it's early days in the process, and there's, Councilor McDougall.
Yeah, no, the only decision that's been made is, the council has made, that is that we go through this process. We were asked by staff if we would be open to the process, and we said yes. But this is no different than if we're rezoning Parkland to residential or residential to industrial. We have the same policies and rules we have to follow through the Municipal Government Act and all that, right? But I really hear you when you, what you're saying there, so, anyway.
Just, if I
Councillor,
could just, sorry,
oh.
if they stayed at the podium, I just, go ahead.
No, Kathy and Bill, I just want to make sure, because with a lot of the talk and trying to really hear what you're saying, so what your concern is, and I know that you folks have done developments and have gone through processes, so I guess what I'm trying to hear, what you're saying is that you feel the fact that you folks were there, you had built a property, you have residents that made that a home, and you didn't know about the sale of the land or even received a letter saying that the parkland was being looked at.
And I have a problem with Parkland that we were told was gonna remain Parkland. We were told that in 2005, when nobody had invested in the area and we invested in the area. Of course you're concerned about what's there and what's gonna become when you're the first one in.
It's a huge investment, and that's why we invested in that area, completely for that reason, that we knew it was AC.
When we
I mean, there
built
was things built around us, we understood that.
And it
But
was,
the parkland, we always thought that was parkland.
Right.
You don't have to worry about that as
Yeah.
being, it's
And we took
tight
a
back there,
year-
it's a dead-end street, it's very tight, the traffic's gonna be, it's just not a good area, in my opinion, for,
no,
and we have nothing, look at the area, what parkland is around there? There's nothing. It's the only grass we have left
anyway.
there.
So thank
If
you
I could-
very
could
much
just-
for your comments.
If they could just stay at the podium there.
Oh.
2000,
But won't let you leave.
yeah, no, 2005, I remember when the development took place,
Yes,
but I'm not sure, did you buy the land from the city or?
Yeah.
from
The city,
The city
correct.
land?
The land assembly
Yeah.
in those days.
And I forget how,
Yeah.
did it have to be rezoned at the time? It must
No.
have.
No,
no.
no.
So it wasn't,
We bought the first piece of, in 1984, we bought the piece first, well, Angus, Kathy's father, first piece, and we bought the second piece in that area across from the Somerset Manor.
so it was rezoned in
The
84.
road wasn't even in when I built the 6-unit down there, so we've been there long, with that area, the whole area really. And we
So-
bought Chelsea Court, that, you know, that and Rayner Avenue, which everybody knows was a complete mess, and we did that in 96, turned that around. So, you know, we've invested and kept things up very well, and we feel like, we did our side of keeping that, and the building we're talking about near us is a seniors building, the bottom 10 units are fully wheelchair accessible, and it was a building that was very much ahead of its time, and
So it was rezoned in that whole area back then in 84, and then you built it in 2005?
No.
we bought through like Maple,
We bought Maple in 84.
all down Maple,
But-
420, 430, 296, 298, we bought all those and built.
390
In
Brophy.
86, 87, 91.
So it must, you say it was rezoned when you purchased it?
Yeah, oh yeah, that was all.
I'm just trying to figure out when it would have been rezoned.
That was all zoned for apartments there, and then the one we bought in 2004 was the one you're talking about
And-
now up the hill.
Yeah, and I'd like to just make a comment, when you guys were gonna do, what is it, the thing behind Maple Avenue, what that's called, that they did?
Eco Park.
The Eco Park. When you guys did the Eco Park, Mike Thursday came to us, he came in our office, and he said, Bill and Kathy, this is what we're planning to do back there. I just wanna know, what's your feelings, how do you feel about it, you've got a vested interest in there. And we said, no, we have no problem with that, Mike, go right ahead. So what was the difference between you guys putting the Eco Park in and coming to see us, before the Eco Park was in?
And
Or-
I think he
or-
contacted everyone in the area,
I
that,
think
as far
he
as I
did.
know, I'm not sure.
And
Mike would
then-
know that, but.
From changing Parkland over to apartments or whatever, and not coming to see us. Like, Mike Thursa thought it was important enough to come see us when you were gonna put the the other thing in.
I think in this case here, there were two developers approached the city, so that's how come the city got involved in it. Well, we've got two developers wanting something, so I guess the city decided, well, we've got to get back to them with an answer. So I'm not gonna mention who the developers were, or are, but they approached the city for this project.
I don't blame the developers, that's what I do.
No.
I'm a developer, that's what I do all the time.
Yeah.
That's
No,
not my,
we're
that's not what I'm saying.
against
I'm
development.
not against it at all, and the development would be fine as well, I don't know any details about it, which we don't hear, but it's just that part that, you know, we are invested in that area and expect it to be parkland and stay parkland.
Well, thank you very, very much for
Thank you.
for that, and we certainly appreciate your views and thoughts on it. And so this is the time in the meeting where we invite the public to speak. So thank you. And but before I invite additional people to speak, we do have a couple of letters and petitions that I'll read into the record, just so that they are on the record. And the first one is from the tenants of 376 Duke Street and tenants of 391 and 388 Brophy Avenue to City of Summerside Council and Mayor Basil Stewart and Planning Committee. As a resident of these buildings, I feel it is not in the best interest of the city to sell off parkland for profit. There must be other empty land surrounding the city or in the city for development. Please do not start selling parkland for development. It cannot be replaced. We rented this apartment with the knowledge that we had parkland behind us and there would be no buildings on this land. It has been a peaceful place to live. This area is senior friendly and we have appreciated that very much. Some of us have sold our homes and this is our new home. We, the seniors and residents, wish to have the land remain as parkland. Please listen to our voices, as this is one of the reasons we picked this building to make our home. And there's 38 signatures on that petition. And we have another petition from petition of Development Parklands, Brophy Avenue. We, tenants of Chesapeake Heights on Brophy Avenue, are writing today to express our disappointment that beautiful parkland is now going to be developed into apartments. We moved to this building, some of us, many years ago because we enjoy the quiet of this area with its mostly senior buildings and no through traffic allowed. The parkland is a major contributing factor to the attractiveness of this area. The green space in the area is limited. The major increase in traffic that these types of developments require again impacts our quiet enjoyment. In closing, please do not allow this parkland to be turned into apartments. And we have 34 signatures on that document. We also received an email from Terry Lynn Gallant to Councillor Barb Ramsey, and I'll read that into the record. We're unable to attend the meeting regarding the plans for the green space on Brophy Avenue. We do not wish to have any more low-income apartments. There is plenty all around us. With low-income apartment comes a lot of problems for a quiet neighborhood. We also enjoy the quietness of our dead end of road housing. May we suggest using the entrance on Tower Street by the park so you could make it a four-way stop and they could access the apartment from there. And yes, we know it is by a park and the fence would be easily blocked out of the traffic, which would only be access for the apartment. Thank you for hearing our concerns. Terry Lynn Gallant, 382 Brophy Avenue, Summerside. So those are the written submissions that we have received. So I would open the floor to any other residents? Oh. So we would open the floor then for any other member of the public. The developer is here, may have a few words to say as well. Jamie? And again, state your name and address, please, Jamie, and for the record, and the floor is yours, sir.
Hi, my name is Jamie Rogerson, and I'm from Summerside. My address is 106 Sally Drive. I just want to say thanks to everybody for coming. I know Bill and Kathy, and you know, I admire what they've done in Summerside, and Angus and Bill and Colleen. They're really great developers. They're great people. And I guess all I'm going to say today is we're looking for our opportunity to do what they've done, build nice buildings, quality tenants. This is a tough decision for everybody, and I'm well aware of that. I didn't have anything prepared because I didn't plan on getting up unless there was any questions for me, but, you know, and that's all we're asking is that we did sign an agreement with the government like you talked about, Councillor Ramsey, and it's all just on the means that this process moves forward. Council is aware of that, and the government as well, and you know, it's something that we've taken a lot of time to work through. We've got over a year of planning into this process, and it's not something that we've taken lightly either. We realize that it affects a lot of people, both positively and clearly some negatively. And like Bill said, you know, it might not necessarily be the development, but the fact that it's parkland and stuff like that. But we're looking for the opportunity to help out Islanders, help out, you know, the residents of Summerside, because affordable housing and housing in general is hard to find right now. Every duplex that's being built is sold before 90% of the people even get a chance to put their name on one for rent or to buy. So with our development, we're looking to, you know, open some options for people. Net zero buildings or net zero capable for sure, with solar panels and things of that nature. You know, the opportunity of possibly reintroducing power into the city's grid. You know, we've spent millions of dollars on solar here in Summerside, probably billions if you really get down to it. And, you know, we're just looking to play our piece and help out as much as we can. And if anyone has any questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer the ones I can.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Rogerson?
I think, sorry.
Yes, sir. If you go to the mic, please, sir, so, and then just state your name and your address, and the floor is yours for questions.
My name is Bob McLeod. I'm a resident of Chesapeake Heights. I'm just wondering, how many of these buildings are going to be put in that area?
So our plan...
Wait, oh, your turn.
Our preliminary plan is to have 4 of these buildings. 32 units in each building, but they're not your typical design. They're not going to be a great big building like is on the waterfront or anything like that. They have a small footprint. They're only 5,500 square feet.
How many people? How many apartments?
There's 32 in each unit.
Okay, so 4 times 32?
Yeah, there'd be 128.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many cars?
128.
You're dealing with a hell of a lot of congestion here. And that road is only one in and one out. Can you imagine all those cars going in and out? There's no throughways. It's a green space. Should be kept as a green space. What about that playground? Is that going to go too?
No, the playground's staying.
Thank God.
Yeah.
But I mean, we need lung space, breathing space. And everyone that goes is a loss that you can't get back. I, for one, am not for this. I really am not. I may be dead and gone by the time if it goes through. But I'm just thinking of down the road. I think it's going to be a hell of a mess when it's finished, if it goes through. So I'll just leave it at that. We'll carry on. I wish you all the best. Just
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any? Councillor Durrell, you had a question?
I have a question, not necessarily for Jamie, but just when we start to move on, just a question about just some history in the area, just a basic. So whenever we're ready to move on from Mr. Rogerson,
okay,
I can carry on that.
Councillor Adams, did you have?
No, I was just asking for that picture to go up that was up there.
And we have another member of the public wishing to say a few words. You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Anna Johnson, and I moved to Chesapeake Heights, 390 Brophy. I'm starting in my 4th year. It's a beautiful spot, it's quiet, there's a lot of us use that Greenspace. I was talking to Barb, and I'm not sure that she was aware that it was as nice as it really is. There's beautiful big trees. And the biggest thing I think that bothers me is the noise from 128 units. That's a lot. We hear the noise from some of the houses on Elm Street and Duke Street. And I mean, it's wonderful. They're young, they want to party, and that's great. I was there once, but I'm not anymore, sadly. And I moved to Summerside from the country to be quiet and to be peaceful and to enjoy my space. And green space is something that is very, very important. And if you go to a lot of the big cities and you look, those big cities are trying to figure out a way to bring green space back. They wasted all their green space on development. Now they want green space back. And they can't get it, you know? And it's just, I think it's sad. Plus, it's all seniors right around there. We're all seniors. We have a manor, we have us as a senior building, the building across from us is senior, the building off to our left is senior, the units on the right, they're senior. And we, I think, have earned the right, if we want to sleep in until 10 o'clock in the morning, we've earned that right. We worked hard all our lives, and we've earned that right. And we're not gonna get it. We're not gonna get it. Because how many years is it gonna take for that to be completed? And what about the heavy equipment that has to come in? And just the dust and everything that we have to put up with because of it. It just, there has to be another property. And I know this has already been talked about, but one of the things, one of the comments I would like to make is if you're not interested in selling a property, if you're just speculating, you don't list it with real estate. You do your speculating first. You get your answers first. I know, I had a large property, and we were thinking about making it into a subdivision. We were on the outskirts of Kensington. And before we ever even called a real estate agent, we went through government, we went through IRAC, we went through all of it to see if we get the driveways, the right-of-ways, all that. So to me, somebody somewhere knew that this was going to happen because they listed it with real estate. And what I'm hearing from the council is this is the first time you guys are hearing about it. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
Councillor McFeely, I'll answer a couple of her questions there quickly if I can.
Oh, okay, you certainly.
She asked about the kind of the term. We're expecting a 9 to 10 month turnaround per building, which would be built consecutively 1, 2, 3, 4, if approved. So yes, it would be roughly 4 years of construction.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rogerson. Any other comments from the public? And again, I remind you, this is your opportunity, so please, if you have a view, we'd love to hear it.
I have no questions for Jamie. I have questions for myself.
Just come up with a...
Just if you could come to the mic, please, and, pardon me?
Sam, my name's Philip Cameron. I live at 423 Myrtle Street, but I have no questions for Jamie. Does anyone else have questions for Jamie? That'll relieve him of being here. And I'll go on the spot. So maybe 2.5 years ago, I was looking out around Brophy Street, and I said, there's a park there, what's gonna become of it? And I came to the city looking at that land, wondering what was gonna become of it. Between there and here, a lot of talk and a lot of development has approached the people of Summerside about that land. Even my brother-in-law likely didn't know I was looking at it.
No, we didn't.
They didn't, because it was one of those things, if I don't keep it quiet, it's out into the public. Well, once I found out the city's protocol and how they had to follow their steps, and they did follow whatever steps they did, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it did go out and got listed, and someone made the best bid on it, and now we're standing here figuring out if we're gonna sell the parkland or not. Looking in the mirror, the first side of the mirror looked great to me. I seen the land, I said, okay, what's gonna happen to that land? I got 3 buildings around there. I do own 391 Brophy, 376 Duke, and 445 Tower and 447 Tower. I shouldn't say I owned them, I have mortgages on them, okay? I pay taxes. The whole 9 yards go with it, but we're looking after that area, and that's why I looked into it to see what is gonna happen to that land. And then, this is what happens, it goes up for sale. So I guess, looking on the bright side of the mirror, it looked good at first. I was thinking, oh, this is all great, okay, I'll go in and see the city, and we'll kinda, they're cutting the grass, I'll cut the grass for 10 years. But it didn't go like that. It went out to the public, and everybody had their bidding wars, and it ended up almost sold, but not sold. So that's great to hear that it's not sold. And for the other people that know it's up on the auction block now, but not sold, that's good. But look on the other side of the mirror where it's dark, the dark side. You don't see this argument of who's going to develop, what's going to be developed, and the people of Brophy, Tower Street, Duke Street, now are realizing our neighbors going to be our neighbors. Who are they? Is there going to be a big development in back there? I didn't tell my tenants that I was looking at the land. So now it's out in the public. Is this park land going to be sold? And that's why we're here tonight. So there's 2 sides to the mirror, folks. You can look at the bright side thinking you're getting her all. Or you can look at the other side and say you're not getting none of her. She's staying the way she is, parkland. Okay, that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you very much.
And thank you
Any
very
questions?
much. Any questions?
I have one, maybe
Mr.
you can
Cameron?
clarify it. Sorry, was there somebody else?
No, go ahead,
I
Your
was just
Worship.
wondering, because it was mentioned, and I'd like to know, the listing apparently happened after the developers contacted the city staff. The developer contacted the city staff, and then that's when the listing was after that, right?
Your Worship, I can speak on that, I think. Whenever we found the listing, we've been actively looking for property in the area because we had done the work on the land before development off of Spruce Drive. And what I normally do when I'm looking is either click on cheapest available or oldest listings. And when I clicked on oldest listings, I believe that listing, and I could be wrong, was 230 some odd days on the real estate market.
So one of the developers, I'm not sure of the number, approached city staff, I guess, and that's when the advertisement or the listing took place after somebody contacted the city?
Well, it should be Basil, because,
Right.
because Phil said that it went to you guys, right, and you guys agreed to sell it. So you'd have to agree to sell it, and then it would go to real estate. Would that not?
Well, that's what, I don't.
No, Rob, we could ask CAO Rob to clarify that, please.
Yeah, Rob.
There you go.
So what had happened was we were approached with an expression of interest in the property.
We as in the staff, right?
Yep. And before we brought it to council, we had a discussion internally as to whether we had a need to continue to hold on to the property. We came to council and said, what do you think? If you're interested in selling, what we would do is then have to go through some sort of a public process to dispose of the property. We weren't able to just deal with one expression of interest. And it was listed with Royal LePage.
Okay, I have a comment. When I, Sorry, Phil. When
This-
we stood up here, you guys told us that you guys did not know this land was gonna be sold. All of you councilors said you didn't know the land was gonna
No.
be sold.
We agreed to go
No.
through the process.
We agreed to go through the process, but
We did not agree
No.
to sell land. We needed the process to be completed.
So did you, the councilors know the land was gonna be listed for sale with real
Yes,
estate?
and that's when we agreed to go through the process. Staff come back to
So
us.
if you're not planning on selling something, why would you list it with real estate? That makes no sense to me.
just one sec. We have
Yeah.
Councillor McDougall, we have Councillor Snow, and Councillor Ramsey there, so.
So I'll sort of answer that.
Yeah.
Just like anything, we're putting stuff out for interest, to see what interest is there. That doesn't mean we go ahead with anything we do as a city. There's lots of things that come into council chambers that we talk about that never get over the finish line, ever. So if a developer comes to the city with a good idea, I think as a council, just my opinion, I'll speak for myself, I think we would be silly not to listen. But just because you're listening doesn't mean you're doing. So so when you guys came to the city to buy property, I'm hopeful the council at that time listened and said, you know what, this is a great idea, we want to develop that area, let's go ahead. So this is similar to here. So we're hearing all the stuff, we could easily say, you know what, this is not a great idea, or this is still really a good idea, but we're listening to all the sides, options, what could possibly happen to that property.
Okay, I'm just
so that's
looking at this from a business person of somebody that owns land. So if I own land or a building, I don't list it unless I'm pretty damn sure I wanna sell it. You know, like, sorry, but that's just my thinking.
Councillor Ramsey has a point.
Just so you know, this thing is, I don't know if it's mine or. So when this came to council, someone wanted to buy the property. There were other people interested in the property. So council thought the fair thing to do was list it so those people who were interested in it could at least have a kick at the can, right? Like you just said that, like, you know. So that's what council was trying to do, and not just say, well, we're gonna sell this to one person if we all agree to not to rezone it. We haven't even come there yet. But when people came to us with interest, we didn't think it was fair to do that unless everybody that was interested in the property had a fair shot. Then the stipulation is they're not gonna, and no one's going to purchase it unless we can make the changes or rezone it or do what. And so that's what this process is about. Does that make sense? I'm trying to make sense, Kathy.
I get what you're saying, but to the public and to us, it looks like the city just said, okay, we're selling this land.
Oh, no.
The hell with everybody else.
No.
And it's a done deal.
No.
And oh yeah, we'll go through the motions of gonna have a meeting and pretend that we're gonna decide whether we're gonna rezone it.
That's certainly,
That's what it looks like.
that's certainly,
And I think, sorry, I think on the developer side, you know, as far as Jamie's concerned too, I mean, he spent a lot of money on this. Like he's invested a lot of time, and here we are at a meeting to decide after he's invested all that time and money to decide. Like, wouldn't that be a nice decision to say, at the time, say, are we serious about selling Parkland? If we are, I guess that's what happened. You are serious about selling Parkland. I wouldn't go this far. And Jamie or whoever else, or Philip, wouldn't have spent years possibly, I don't know how long this has been going, but a long time plus a lot of money on plans. And now we have to fight it. You see what I mean? You see? I don't know if you see what I mean.
no, I mean, I think we certainly understand the point that you've raised, and I think all councillors have said that this is early in the process in terms of, and we, I think we have that recorded, and I think it's a point that we certainly would take under advisement in terms of the developer's opinion on the process. So we respect that, and as we said, this is the first part of the process, and an opportunity for the public to speak.
Can I just ask
Councillor
a quick
Ramsey.
question, Brian? Because I know, Kathy, you said like you didn't know the property was for sale, right? And then Jamie says it was 280 days on there. So would it have been better had the city put a for sale sign on the property? Like, I guess when it goes through real estate to me,
That wouldn't hurt.
right, but for me, if I,
It also wouldn't hurt to maybe send a letter out to all, like Andrew Lodge, the people.
Everybody within 500 meters.
Send a letter, we are thinking of changing Parkland and maybe making it to our whatever. We would like your input before this gets to this point.
And we've certainly
Right.
heard that tonight,
Thank you.
and
She asked me,
Uh,
I'm just telling you.
no, understood, and you know, appreciate the view that you expressed. I can assure you that, and but again, I reiterate, we're early in the process, and tonight is the night for public to have input, and we're getting input, and we appreciate that. So, is there anybody else that has anything to say this evening from the public before we move on?
Can I just ask a question?
You
here?
certainly may, Your
I was
Worship.
just wondering, because some place along the line over the last, how many months, 6 months or whenever it started, that they said that, and I think it might have even been mentioned tonight, that a portion of it was still to be parkland or park. Is that? So I'm not sure how much of the portion or.
Very small.
Just where the playground is there, and I walked up by there today to have a peek at it, and it's where the playground is and stuff, I think. So, I know Councillor Durand has been patiently, is this the time you would like to speak?
Yes, please. Should I state my name? I just,
Thank you, Philip.
yeah, you, Mr. and Mrs. McGinnis, you own Chesapeake Heights, correct? Like the large, so it was before my time when that was built. I mean, it's still a relatively new.
05 we built.
05, yeah, so I mean, that's not that old. I mean, was there any concerns at that time when that came forward for as far as like any opposition or concerns about traffic congestion, like when that went in? No?
There was nothing there.
There was nothing there. Erskine McMillan had built the ones that Philip owns now. He had built those, they were there. That was the only thing that I knew that was there in the area.
Okay, and
No, we had, there was a
Okay.
meeting, I think, was there a meeting or something like that? Maybe it was.
it maybe would have had to be rezoned, maybe? No?
No, it just, they said earlier it didn't have to be rezoned.
No, but that particular development, okay.
I don't think there was a meeting, I don't remember attending.
I think that area, didn't we say earlier that, sorry, Mr. Chairman, but wasn't that area zoned in 1984?
I think so.
Along there,
Yeah, that's when we bought Maple.
but, was that when it was purchased?
Yeah, I think so.
2004 we bought it,
But
Chesapeake Heights.
But you guys had developed, like, you had done Maple and zoned it already, and I think you had zoned up by Chesapeake already too. It was already, the zoning was already there, we didn't have to fight.
Was it R3 at that time or something like that? It was a different zone.
I forget what,
I'm not sure.
long before my time.
Who the developers were in that area at the time, I can't remember, but
Okay,
84.
anybody else from the public have anything to say before we move on? If not, I don't see any lights from councillors, don't see any public. We thank you very, very much for expressing your views. We need to hear them, and we appreciate that, and as well, thank Mr. Rogerson, the developer, for clarifying a few things. So that's what the process is all about, and we appreciate it very much. So I will move on with the explanation of the process. In order to process the official plan, zoning bylaw, and park and green space plan amendments, the following steps are required. 1, the zoning bylaw amendment is read the first time and declared is read the first time at the first council meeting. 2, the zoning bylaw amendment is referred to planning board for review and recommendation. So steps 1 and 2 take place this evening, and that's at the same meeting. And so we'll have a couple of resolutions here shortly. Step 3, the planning board reviews the application and prepares a recommendation to council. Step 3 takes place at the planning board meeting, and that is scheduled for March 1st at 5 p.m., and that's open to the public. 4, the zoning bylaw amendment is read the second time and declared is read the second time at the second council meeting. The official plan amendment is read to be adopted by council. The resolutions will be either carried or defeated by a vote of council. If the official plan amendment is adopted by council, the amendment is sent to the Minister of Agriculture and Land for signature, and the amendment becomes official. If the official plan amendment is defeated, the zoning bylaw amendment will be defeated as well, as the zoning bylaw amendment cannot contradict the official plan amendment. The social plan amendment is read to be adopted by council. The resolution will be either carried or defeated by a vote of council. If the zoning bylaw amendment is adopted by council, it is sent to the Minister of Agriculture and Land for signature, and the amendment becomes official. So steps 4 to 6 take place at council's second meeting, and that will happen on March 31st at the 21st, excuse me, at the regular council meeting of March. Please note that in accordance with section 5.20 of the city zoning bylaw, any person who is dissatisfied by a decision of the council in respect to the administration of this bylaw may appeal council's decision within 21 days to the Island Regulatory and Appeals Commission, IRAC. So with that, your worship, I have 2 resolutions. So the first resolution is resolution COS 22-010, moved by myself, Councillor McFeely, seconded by Councillor Kerry Adams, whereas an application was initiated by the City of Summerside for a zoning amendment for a portion of PID number 322339 from Parkland P zone to high density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. Be it resolved that zoning amendment 014 be hereby declared as read a first time, and I'll read Schedule B into the record, your worship, a zoning bylaw amendment 014, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. The Council of the City of Summerside, under the authority invested in it by Section 18 to Section 19 of the Planning Act, RSPI 1988, Cap P-8, hereby enacts as follows. 1. The zoning for a portion of PID number 322339 shown on Schedule B of the City of Summerside zoning bylaw is designated as high-density residential R4 zone, hereby excluding it from its former designation of Parkland P zone. And the map is attached, your worship, for consideration.
So moved by Councillor McFeely and seconded by Councillor Adams. You have all heard the resolution. And
Councillor Snow?
Question?
yeah, go ahead.
I'm wondering if for planning board, can we bring back all the information on the listing for this property? From whoever the listing agent was. I'm just saying, I'm recalling things a little different than what we're talking about here tonight, so, I just would like any listing dates for this property, if it was listed prior and then relisted, or any of that stuff, if it could come back.
Any further questions on the resolution? And ready for the vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary nay? Carried.
And the second resolution, your worship, COS 22-011, moved by myself, Councillor McFeely, seconded by Councillor Kerry Adams, whereas an application was initiated by the City of Summerside for zoning amendment for a portion of PID number 322339 from Parkland P zone to high density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas zoning bylaw amendment 014, bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw be read and declared as read a first time at this council meeting. Be it resolved that zoning bylaw amendment 014, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, be referred back to the planning board for review and recommendation.
Do you read the, oh no, that's the second public meeting. Moved by Councillor McFeely and seconded by Councillor Adams. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary nay? Carried. So just so everybody in the audience is clear on that, that's just part of the process to move this to get to the final vote. Right, Councillor McFeely?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So it's the first part of the process. It now goes to planning board for consideration. Staff diligently were taking notes all evening, and they will provide answers to the questions that were raised for planning board to consider, and planning board will make a recommendation to council on the whatever it was, can't remember the date. The 1st of March at 5 o'clock.
Yes, and I just have something to say, Councillor McFeely. On the 1st, I'm not going to be here, and I hope to zoom in on this. because these are all my residents, and I'm very concerned about how they're feeling and what they want, and so I will be Zoomed in on the 1st. I won't be here, but I'll be, my voice will be here, so just so everyone's aware of that.
And if
Thank
there's a
you.
vote, you'll be able to participate in the Zoom.
And
I'll
also, I'll be here, yeah.
And one of my questions.
Thank you.
Just for the public's information, I guess I should have said this at the front end, the members of planning board, the voting members of planning board are Councillor Ramsey, Councillor Adams, the mayor, and myself, and other councils attend planning board and certainly ask questions and take part in the debate. But when it comes to the vote, to make a recommendation to council, those are the people who have a vote at planning board.
The recommendation will be just to forward it for council for a full vote. One of my questions I asked earlier there, Mr. Chairman, about a portion of it being for the park, but I see on this sheet here, that portion there is squared out. I'm not sure if it was on the screen for the people or not.
This is the second meeting.
Oh, yes, right, yeah. Thank you.
Your worship.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just didn't know when I could speak. But for the sake of all of the people that have come out publicly, I'm sure maybe I'm repeating all of the good points that have been made through the chair. But after going through many of these types of meetings, in fairness to all of the people that have come out, just as Councillor Bryan has explained, the reason, personally, I think many of the councillors, we feel this way, the reason why it's so good that we go through this type of a process is because it allows that time before the other meetings take place to hear tonight the information that has been put forth. And again, council has to be very fair and impartial to everybody's voice and opinion. So I hope people will receive that. We're not trying to do anything unfair or whatever. We're trying to follow everything that we have to abide by in our oath of office and with the municipal government. So I know that we've heard all of you very well, and we appreciate your very honest comments, both sides. So thank you.
So the next portion, I guess, you want to continue on then?
Well,
If there are no more questions?
To keep rolling, this is, somewhat related, very similar, so many of the points would be similar. 395 Brophy Avenue Parks and Green Space Plan Amendment, and the map. The background, the City of Summerside is initiating a map amendment to the city's Parks and Green Space Plan. The purpose of the amendment is to delete a portion of the existing mini park, Tower Street Park, -140, as indicated on the map. The public meeting was advertised in the February 8th, 2022 edition of the Guardian. Although the notification letters are not required for amendment to the Parks and Green Space Plan, the amendment was noted in the notification mailed out to the neighbors that were impacted by the official plan and zoning amendment for this property. As a result of the proposed official planning zoning amendment to a portion of PID number 322339, an amendment to the Parks and Green Space Plan map is required. The area 140 Tower Street Park on Schedule B, map of future and existing recreation and green space, indicates the subject area being considered. A portion of the park will be deleted from the map, while the remaining portion will remain as existing playground with play structures. And the map is there showing the portion to be deleted, item 140 there, and the portion to remain as a park along Tower Street. So now, again, is the time that we invite comments from the public. We certainly heard in the first part there comments relating to green space and parkland and concerns about that being evolved into development. So the floor is open to the public.
I think we said everything we had to say.
I would agree.
Hi,
Mr. Cameron.
Philip Cameron, 423 Myrtle Street. That's the picture of what you're trying to, can you lower it down just a little bit? There's no access into that from Brophy. Well, it's not read off, like, is that a separate, how you gonna do that? How you gonna get into that land with no access there if it's not in the portion to be deleted?
Director Aaron.
The portion that's on the top was already zoned residential, R4. The only
That
part
was,
that's what's on the zoning map, is the part that abuts Brophy was already zoned R4.
okay, so I never knew that in this whole year and a half of discussion with nobody.
Okay, that's what's on our zoning map for probably 5 years, and the next nothing has.
Okay, so I don't know, it wasn't brought to my attention, but that's okay. And the second thing was.
It's still the entire parcel that was, my understanding, considered for sale, but it was already, the parcel, it was the entire parcel for sale. The top portion was already R4, and this portion was Parkland.
Who owns those two lots there where the little land is there?
That is city land as well. And that would be the access for the development to come off of Brophy. What's being up there is considered what had to change zoning. This part was not zoned Parkland, but abutted Brophy Street.
Who owns the larger lot?
To the left, there's a building on that already.
I actually do.
Okay.
So that's why, when I looked at the whole picture, and I looked at that mayor picture, alls I wanted to do was kind of secure that land so I'd know what was going on there. And if I'd have known the access was separate and ready to be sold, that's all I would have looked at. There was no need to look at the rest of it, because it was parkland that I was kind of trying to leave there.
What is there, even though it's shown as separate parcels, that's all one parcel of land. Even though the mapping on there, the small bit of mapping there, that's not actually, it's all one parcel of land.
And some of it's R4.
And some of it's R4, so, yeah, okay, so that really throws me
People
tonight.
got all this, we can show you the zoning map, there's large parcels of land that have more than one zone on it.
Yeah, so I thought the whole park going right through, right up to Brophy Street was all the parkland, so and that just throws me, because I would have just only looked at that R4 land, not the parkland.
And it would have had to still go through a process to get.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have minded that.
It would have had to get subdivided off, or.
Well, if it was R4 land, you would have just sold it, would you?
It would still have to get subdivided. Again, I'm not making the decision.
No, I know, but if it was R4 land, why wouldn't I not just known about that and said, you could look at just this R4 land here, and not the parkland?
You're looking at me and I wasn't party to your
No, I
discussions.
know, that's why I'm just kind of, and I know Jamie is looking at the park as if it's a whole opening of land there, which is fine. But anyway, my closing comment was like, how are they getting into that land, looking at it with the piece you're trying to sell, the park?
Off of rate, they're proposing one there, 2 accesses.
So they're gonna have an access there on the right?
That's what's on their original concept. Staff will provide comments on it, yeah.
Okay, and the other side, on the left there,
If you just,
Can you go back to the original one there with?
well, just 1 second.
There it is there.
Oh,
There's an access off of the end, make that a permanent turnaround at the end, and an entrance or an exit. The property does go out between the 2 buildings there. There's
2 in and out.
and there's enough room there to both ways, like you're
They're
40
both,
feet?
what they are proposing is a one-way in and a one-way out.
So basically, that would affect all my residents big time, because they're gonna have to come, my building's great on the other side, right there. So all the traffic's gonna come by my building and whip through.
Well, actually, that's actually my building there. I know. Give me a sec, Kathy, because this is what happened last time. I was up here and then I had to go sit down. I didn't even get to finish. So on this piece of land, if the access is coming in on the right, it's gonna really circle right around 391 Brophy.
And what
So it's just gonna be a circle of cars coming in and going out. So I'm pretty sure the people at 391 Brophy, which they already sent their concerns in on paper, would really be concerned about a development going in behind us there now.
And what we're saying is that's the concept that is submitted. The
Yes.
concept is not what's been approved by staff or anything else.
No, and the land's not been sold yet either.
Correct, but.
Okay,
Staff.
so we're on the right page here.
But
Yeah.
staff, like I say, we're here to view this and hear the comments and bring back at the next meeting to planning board.
Right, okay. That's good, thank you.
Anything else, Philip? I wanted,
No,
I
that's
thought
it.
you were done last time, so.
I'm gonna be done now if Kathy don't get up here. She's like her dad, she just wants to get to the mic. Hey, Angus, you
Thank
might be
you.
watching this.
Thank you.
Let her go,
I like
bye-bye.
getting to the mic, if anybody knows me, I'm.
Thank you,
probably not
Philip.
like that. But, so, I didn't realize that the driveway was gonna be right in, yes, it's gonna circle Philip's building, but my building's on the opposite side of the road, right there where that little hand is. So all the traffic that Anna went on about is gonna be coming right by our buildings through. So the nice quiet street is no longer a nice quiet street. No, no.
Thank you. Any other comments? Again, it's very similar to our last discussion, so. Okay, if not, we'll move on and explanation of the process again. In order to process a Parks and Green Space plan amendment, the following steps are required. 1, Planning Board reviews the proposed map amendment and prepares a recommendation to Council. So that step will take place at Planning Board meeting scheduled for March 1st, the same as the other one at 5 p.m. 2, the map amendment is adopted by council. The resolution will be either carried or defeated by a vote of council. Step 2 takes place at council's second meeting scheduled for March 21st, 2022. 3, if the amendment is adopted by council, it is sent to the Minister of Communities, Land and Environment for signature, and the amendment becomes official. Please note that in accordance with Section 5.20 of the City Zoning Bylaw, any person who is dissatisfied by a decision of council in respect to the administration of this bylaw may appeal council's decision within 21 days to the Island Regulatory and Appeals Commission, IRAC. And that, Your Worship, wraps up my portion of the public meeting number 2.
And is that the last one, or is there a number 3?
That's the last one, but we move into planning board after this.
Can I just-
Councillor Snow?
Yeah, so this amendment obviously only is pertinent if the other is rezoned. If it's not rezoned, then we don't have to go any further. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the end of the motion to adjourn the council meeting. Then there's another rezoning one here for 130 Greenwood Drive.
That's planning board.
Or for the planning board, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
So do we
So
need an adjournment? from
we
the
need an
council?
adjournment of
Yeah.
the special
So
council
moved by
meeting.
Councillor McFeely and seconded by Councillor Ramsey. The council meeting adjourned. Now we move into the next portion of the rezoning, and everybody's welcome to stay. It shouldn't be too long either.
Thank you very much, folks. Oh, we gotta keep rolling here. We got a lot of reading to do. We got a lot to cover here.
Okay, sorry, we had to take a little break in between the meetings there, so welcome back, everybody. And we'll continue on with the planning board, and we'll turn it over to the chair of the planning board committee, Councillor Brian McFeely. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship, and we'll call the February 23rd meeting of Planning Board to order. And we'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Ramsey, that the agenda be approved as circulated. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary, motion carried. We have 3 items on our agenda tonight. The first being 130 Greenwood Drive official plan and zoning amendment. The supporting explanation, the purpose of the official plan and zoning amendment is to allow a multi-zone development consisting of semi-detached row housing and apartment building housing development. Background: an application was received from Campco Inc. for PID number 69781 to amend the city official plan from industrial low land use to residential land use, and the zoning bylaw from light industrial M1 zone to a mixed low-density mixed residential R2 zone and high-density residential R4 zone. The purpose of the zoning amendment is to allow semi-detached housing in the proposed R2 zone, apartment buildings in proposed R4 zone. A public meeting was held on February 16th, 2022, and council gave first reading on the same date. And the map indicating a portion of property to be rezoned, in which the R2 and the R4 portions are there. So the report, under section 5.7 of the zoning bylaw, when planning board reviews zoning bylaw amendments, it has to consider the following general criteria as applicable. Under section 8.4 of the Parks and Greenspace plan, the criteria of B, C, E, G, and H must be considered. So A, conformity with the requirements of this bylaw. Staff comment: if council approves the zoning map amendments from M1 to R2 and R4, the applicant will be permitted to construct housing subject to development standards of the respective zone. A major subdivision process would be required to allow the subdivision of lands. B, conformity with the official plan. Staff comment: section 5.6 of the Summerside official plan describes council's policies for industrial development. Section 5.22, location of high-density housing, describes council's policies for location of high-density housing. The proposed amendments will impact the Parks and Greenspace plan. I'm not going to read the whole official plan here. The parts that are highlighted are the parts that are pertinent to this rezoning, so I will read those into the record. So section 5.6.1 in part states there are a number of areas across the city zoned for industrial use, including 2 large areas located respectively around Greenwood Drive, which includes Summerside Industrial Park. Council's intent is to promote a functional system of special purpose industrial areas which are each suited to attracting quality industries in their respective market. And the map is there kind of showing industrial areas and the throughout the city, and particularly the ones in St. Andrews and the Greenwood Drive one are highlighted in the black there, and the hand is there. M1 light industrial zone, 5 areas are designated for light industrial. The Greenwood Drive industrial area, which does have large vacant sites and will be further expanded in size. Second, a large vacant parcel of the west of Greenwood Drive and south of Confederation Trail, which had been zoned partly for industrial use and partly for low-density residential use, is now reserved completely for light industrial. And council's goals and stated objectives in the official plan, the following are council stated statements of policy, and I'll again just read the highlighted ones that relate to this particular situation. to promote a functional system of industrial area, which focusing on a particular industrial zone as follows, and Greenwood Drive is listed there. 3, in light industrial zones, promote appropriate industries as permitted uses along with supporting commercial businesses. And then we skip down to number 5, in light industrial zones, A, promote accommodation of industries in quality industrial park developments, and B, require appropriate buffer strips where industrial or commercial uses either adjoin any other non-agricultural zone, except where commercial uses in industrial zone adjoins a commercial zone. And 7, further examine the city's industrial needs as part of its economic development strategy 2011. Includes possible needs for an eco business park in industrial area and the adequacy of remaining growth capacity at Greenwood Drive industrial area, the need for timely extensions of infrastructure in the St. Elners industrial area. Location criteria, and the 2 bullets that are related to this are the desirability of locating high-density housing close to jobs, community facilities and services, and of promoting pedestrian access. And the final one, avoidance of negative economic and physical impact on surrounding land uses, whether existing or proposed. In relation to encouraging high-density housing in specific in specific areas, the plan includes the following statements from council. Relating to this one is number 9, consider application for high-density housing in other areas with careful consideration of council's location criteria listed above. And then the Parks and Greenspace Plan, section 7.32, indicates the future conservation area, the Ice Pond Conservation Area, in the extension 8.1, and you can see it going through the map there. And that was certainly raised as an issue at the public meeting as well there, so that speaks to that, so.
Just so I'm clear on that, Mr. Chairman, is that the green, or the wetland area, the yellow portion?
Yes, that's the portion, yeah.
No, that's not the wetland area. That was a proposed conservation area from the ice pond. It's basically it's an indicator to get it from the trail. It's not an exact path, but
Okay, so the red line going through there is,
that's a trail.
that's a trail, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, very well. Okay, back, so C, the suitability of the site for proposed development, staff comment. This site can accommodate proposed low-density R2 and high-density R4 residential land use being proposed. D, compatibility of the proposed development with surrounding land uses, including both existing and projected uses. Staff comment. The subject property abuts two existing land uses. The land use to the immediate east and north are light industrial. The land uses to the immediate west and south are low-density residential land uses. The change from light industrial to residential land use would be compatible with the abutting existing residential and may not be considered light industrial land use. However, the Confederation Trail and Greenwood Drive would act as a buffer between the light industrial and proposed residential land uses. The subject property is intended to be further subdivided and will be subject to a major subdivision process upon development. The subject property land use is industrial. However, it has been utilized as farmland for many years. Consideration should be given to maintaining a portion of M1 land running parallel to Greenwood Drive, or a plan to add M1 lands elsewhere in the city. And E, and then the map is there showing the zoning around it. E, any comments from residents or other interested persons? Staff comment. A public meeting was held on February 16th. The public meeting notice was advertised in the February 1st edition of The Guardian. 44 letters were mailed to 37 property owners. Clifford McQuaid, Campco Inc. provided an overview of the development, noted that the housing is needed in the community. Ann Gallison, 456 South Drive expressed concerns regarding the accuracy of the maps displayed at the public meeting. Property mapping below is according to the provincial assessment data. Monty Warren Valley Street raised concerns about an easement between his property and the subject property. Traffic increase and safety on Valley Street. Judy Peters of Valley Street expressed concern on Valley Street being too narrow to handle the proposed additional traffic. Pedestrian safety and wildlife habitat on the subject property. Charles Brown, Flamingo Drive, expressed concerns about the lack of information regarding wetlands on the property. Harold Grant, Lockwood Drive, was not opposed to development as he would prefer residential over industrial, but was concerned about traffic and pedestrian safety. Patricia Turner also expressed concern about traffic volume and safety. Tracy Brown from the Bedeck Bay Environmental Management Association expressed concerns over the potential runoff from the site during construction. She also asked that council consider the over impact on the ecosystem and wildlife habitat. Reg Chapman, Stratford PEI, support the development, noted the developers' quality housing developments in Summerside, Langwell Court, Charlottetown, Stratford. A letter from Green Isle Environmental Inc. was read into the record at the public meeting and is attached to this report. Concerns raised at the public meeting have been addressed through this report. F, adequacy of existing water, sewer, road, stormwater, and electrical services, city parking and parkland for accommodating the development and any projected infrastructure requirements. Staff comment, the city's water supply and sewer treatment system can handle the change in zoning from light industrial to R2 and R4. Greenwood Drive has a 250 millimeter distribution main on the street that can handle the water requirements of this change in zoning. The developer is responsible for any new water mains and service requirements and the connection to the city water distribution system. Greenwood Drive has a 300 millimeter gravity collection main wording here is that can handle the additional sewer loading from this development. The developer is responsible for any sewer mains and services and the connection to the existing main. The developer is responsible for all servicing costs due to zoning changes and land development. The existing street system, Greenwood Drive, it's a local street, on the east side of the development, the South Drive, Collector Street on the west side of the proposed development via Valley Street will accommodate the additional traffic generated from the proposed development. The proposed street layout for R2 portion is not acceptable as shown. Street layouts for both the proposed R2 and R4 zone will require further review at the time of subdivision development. There is an existing storm drainage system along the west side of Greenwood Drive that is sized to accommodate the additional loading generated from this development. Greenwood Drive has three-phase electrical service available to service the proposed development. If existing poles are required to be relocated, the developer is responsible for all associated costs. Underground services required an engineered drawing to be submitted to Summerside Electric for approval. Please note that pad-mounted transformers have a 6-month lead time and require a signed letter of intent before an order is placed. There is existing Parkland, Centennial Park, located within 500 meters of the subject development. The park is accessible by street, walkway, network. Parkland dedication will be required at the time of the subdivision. G, impact from the development on pedestrian vehicular access and safety and on public safety generally. This development will require 2 access points to the existing city street system, which results in safer access to not only this development but existing streets of Lockwood Drive and Valley Street in the event of an emergency. There will be another point of access. Any street access from this development onto Greenwood Drive will align with Innovation Avenue, the city's industrial park entrance. The streets will be built to meet the city standards and will allow pedestrian access along the paved shoulder to the sidewalk on the west side of South Drive and on the city's active transportation lane on the east side of Greenwood Drive and to Confederation Trail. The city must consider the Ice Pond Conservation Area Extension 810 from the existing Ice Pond Conservation Area 190, the Ice Pond Greenway -750, which would connect the Green Shore Park 330 to the Confederation Trail 400, may be, and those numbers relate to the map, may be achieved via a trial system and or street network for this development. The Greenspace plan may require an amendment based on a review and consultation with community services at the time of the subdivision. H, compatibility of the development with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Staff comment, the city is aware of potential wetlands on this site, which must be identified and reviewed during the design phase of development. As we understand, the practice to determine a wetland buffer requires the developer landowner to contact the Department of Environment and arrange for a site visit. A provincial watercourse alteration supervisor performs a site visit and marks the wetland buffer using flagging. The developer landowner would be responsible to have the land surveyed, and the surveyor would collect the flagged areas marked. The survey plan would also identify any easements, right-of-ways, etc. on the property. There are no compatibility issues regarding scenic or heritage resources. I, impact on the city's finances, not applicable. J, other matters as specified in this bylaw. Staff have no comments there. K, other matters as considered relevant. Staff comment, the developer must meet provincial regulations regarding construction site runoff in proximity of watercourses. Staff review. City staff do not support the application from Camco for PID number 69781 to rezone to a mixed or low-density mixed residential R2 zone and high-density residential R4 zone. Please find the planning officer's comments below, and I'll read those into the record. The planning officer's comments, the subject property is approximately 60 acres in area. At the time of the original official plan in 1998, it has been council's intention for this property to be future expansion of the Pope Road-Greenwood Drive Industrial Park. Council's policies noted in this report do not explicitly prohibit council from changing the official plan future land use map from industrial to residential with respect to the current application. However, removing 55 acres of employment land, industrial land, and designated it residential does not align with council's economic growth strategy. In section 3.7.1 of the official plan, the policy number 7 highlighted above. The excerpt there says, similarly targeted commercial and industrial growth strategies are required to demonstrate the city's commitment to growth in these sectors. If council approves the change in the official plan, future land use plan map Schedule B, it is recommended, 1, council directs staff to start identifying potential new industrial growth areas for future land use plan to make up for the equivalent 60 acres being redesignated to residential. 2, the text of the official plan in section 5.6 for industrial lands would need to be amended as well as the map figure noted above. Recommendation 1 and 2 could occur at the time of the official plan 5-year general review in 2023. And 3, as a final recommendation and caution, location and zoning of new industrial lands is not a straightforward process. Residents will have concerns of new industrial zoned land if located near residential zoned areas. The outskirts of the city or agricultural lands may have the land mass required, but may have costly servicing constraints or provincial highway access issues. And we're getting to the end here. As per section 5.10, the B subsection 3 of the zoning bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward to council for a final decision. And before I read the recommendation, I will reference the traffic calculations and engineering comments for Valley Street that are attached there. I don't think it's necessary to read them. They are attached for planning board's consideration and were circulated with the package for the meeting, so hopefully everybody's had a peek at those. I think the highlighted part there, the local street capacity of 5,000 vehicles per day, anticipated street volume 1,168 vehicles per day. Valley Street can handle the additional traffic load if it was the only access from the new R2 and R4 development. And just a couple of written letters there. We had one from Stewart and McKelvey that was read into the record at the public meeting. I don't think we need to read into the record again tonight. Council have all heard it and have seen it. The one from Patricia Bilodeau, was that part of the package for the public? That's new, so I should read that into the record. And it's an email to Bruce McDougall from Patricia Bilodeau. We have received a notice for the proposed development and rezoning of the property between Greenwood Drive and Valley Street, Lockwood Drive. As you are likely aware, the residents of this area, including myself and my husband, are very concerned about how this rezoning will affect our quiet little neighborhood. We are very much in favor of development within the city, but are concerned about the side effects of the surrounding area. I welcome your thoughts on this proposal. Patricia Tanner.
I believe they were here and spoke the other night, weren't they? Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and we had, so the Stewart McKelvey letter is attached. It has been read into the public record. And we did receive one other letter from Mike Tutuska, Director of Economic Development for the city. A lengthy letter. I won't read the whole letter, but we'll paraphrase a little bit here just to say that as the Economic Development Director, he's quite concerned about industrial land being rezoned for other uses, and makes reference to some of our recent rezonings around the industrial park and the concern there, and has highlighted, and council have all received this, and planning board have received this, so I'm sure you've read it. There's some very good quotes in there from business people who have recently left Summerside because of lack of space and so forth. So we would table that for the meeting, but I will read the last two paragraphs into the record just because I think it summarizes his thoughts there. So, Economic Development is currently pleased to see reinvestment in our vacant industrial land stock to address the other mounting gaps in our economy, but feel the trajectory of all these industrial rezonings is further descending us to a point where our ability to track and retain industrial investment will be compromised to a point of no return. It would be Economic Development's preference to see this development in more appropriately zoned lands, but understand the need to address the immediate opportunities. However, all partners must be aware that this trend cannot continue if we are going to create and grow a vibrant economy. And that was respectfully submitted by Mike Tutuska, Director of Economic Development. So that, I think, are all the letters and notes that we've received from interested parties. So I will go back here and read into the record the Planning Board recommendation. Look for a mover and a seconder, and we'll open the floor for discussion. So the Planning Board recommendation, the application received from Camco Inc. for PID number 69781 to amend the city's official plan from industrial land use to residential land use, and the zoning bylaw from light industrial M1 zone to a mix of low density mixed residential R2 zone and high density residential R4 zone be recommended be approved by council. And if I could get a mover and a seconder for that, we would open the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Ramsey. The floor is open for questions.
Are we bringing that motion? Yeah.
So if Planning Board defeats that recommendation,
But
if Planning Board approves that recommendation, we would be recommending to council that it be approved.
But they just said they don't approve.
Staff said
Okay,
they didn't recommend approval.
Right, okay.
If we defeat that motion, then we, it would go to
Still has to
council
go
as
to
not,
council,
as
yeah.
not being recommended by planning board.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
I wanted to recommend it for conversation. Like, I will recommend it to, so if I didn't recommend this, would we still have the conversation this evening?
We're having the conversation this evening, yeah, we're gonna have the conversation now, it's been moved and seconded, so the floor is open for
So the floor is
discussion.
open for and that's what we
Yeah.
would like, I would like to see and hear everybody's view on this.
No, that's what we're doing, so
Okay, great.
it's been moved and seconded, so now the floor is open for discussion.
Tonight, not
Yeah,
the
and then
next
we'll
meeting.
vote on that motion, and it'll either pass or be defeated.
Okay, great.
At
That's-
the
I just
council
wanted to be
meeting.
clear.
Either way, it goes to the council meeting.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
If the planning board don't agree tonight,
It still goes to
it
council.
still goes to council, yeah. Anyway, I just, I agree with the staff's recommendation, just so you know. And I guess it wasn't hard to tell. But I realize the need for residential developments in this city of ours, because if we want to grow, we have to grow, right? We need the developments to grow and to keep our tax base healthy. And even though staff is not recommending this, and I personally, I've been struggling with this one, and I'm willing to work with the economic development and the developer. I know Clifford well, and if this is not approved, to find another place for his development. So, anyway, thank you.
Councillor Ramsey. Thank you, Bruce.
Bruce, and I agree with you, Bruce. Clifford, they built some beautiful developments, and this is very difficult, but we have a plan in place for city, and it's not recommended, and that we lose our industrial land, and we're giving up so much, and yet we know how important housing is, and we know the beautiful work that they do, but we also know the concerns that the residents have, and it's a tough one, but I know that staff aren't recommending this, and so I think through further discussion, I hope we can come to the right decision. Thank you.
Councillor Snow, or I don't know who was first.
Thank you, Councilor McFeely. I too am sort of struggling with this one. Obviously, the value of industrial land to the city is very important, but then we're obviously in a growth pattern where residential buildings are being built at a rate that who knows when that falls off. So, and we continue to hear from industrial users, businesses, how maybe we don't have the talent in the workforce here in our city. We don't build more houses. How do we attract talent to our city? So it's that chicken and the egg scenario. I know there's other industrial lands throughout the city that currently is not being built on. So I'm just really struggling on which way to go. To myself, when I look at the location and think of the location, the close proximity to the boardwalk, to Credit Union Place, to Elm Street School, makes it a very desirable location to live in my mind within the city. And but then again, I do see the value of having it industrial. So it is a real struggle for me. I don't know. One thing I'm really struggling with is the fact when the developer came, there was lots of maybe questions that he didn't seem aware of, whether or not it was wetlands, and it just seemed to be very on a whim that we're going to build on this property. And I like when developers come with a plan and ready to build, and sort of you can envision what possibly could be. And I still, with the comments in here tonight, I'm struggling to see what could be there, because wetlands have to be identified, and So, yeah, it's a tough one. The location, again, I think would be great given the proximity to all the stuff, and it would make a great residential area, but the need for industrial too, if we can get that growth in the industrial area that we need is very important, so, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Snow, and we have Councillor Adams and Councillor Durham.
Thank you. I guess, and just to follow up on what everybody's saying, I guess my worry is that if it isn't housing there, will will the residents be upset when it's industrial there? Like, I guess it's not, you don't like to use the word pick your poison, but do you want like a nice residential near you, or would you rather, facilities around? And I don't know, I know that everybody has to be, careful when they're working with the environment and the springs and so on that's there, but I'm thinking that it is a hard one. We need both in the area. And it's also hard when we have the eco park that's there, the land is there and there's nothing happening on it right now, so it's hard to push more industrial off whenever we have industrial and nothing's picking up there at the moment. So, but you have this residential that could take off at any time. So it's a struggle. I think the residents were they were all very fair that, they understand it, and, they just wanted to, yeah, everybody that spoke was really, everybody was very respectful and everything, so, anyway, yeah, not sure.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Durham.
Thank you, Councillor McFeely. Just, I guess, to agree with the point that Councillor Snow made back during the first meeting on this area. I was kind of concerned, I guess, just with the kind of a lack of awareness on some of the topography of the area from the developer. He didn't seem to be aware of a lot of the details on that land, and once it's rezoned, it's rezoned. So doing so without some of those environmental details, I don't know if that's really a responsible way to go through a rezoning, whether or not it's industrial or commercial, residential. Just to go and approve something without details, let alone some of these important details like environmental things and there's wetlands. So I just don't feel that it's a responsible way to go about it without knowing all that, and there didn't seem to be very much understanding of those things during the first meeting. So to me that's concerning and just not a safe way to go forward, but we'll see how the process goes ahead.
Thank you, Councillor, and Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think, pretty well my feeling is just based on the comments that other councillor members have indicated. I think the first meeting was, important, and as we follow this process, I'm glad that we're doing it, because then that really shows to the residents and people watching that we are trying to be very responsible in following the policy. Having said all of that, there were a number of things. I think since the staff do not recommend it, we have people on staff that bring that expertise and understanding and looking at the zoning and the official plan. I think hearing about the wetland and the springs, the water, all of those environmental concerns to the residents, I think that is something that we really need to take into consideration. And I think it takes a lot of courage for people to come and speak up and talk about something that's, very important to them as a resident. And I also think that we as a council, when we are elected, we are the ones that have to make those tough decisions one way or the other. And also, our Economic Development Department has voiced an expression to help us in this process about the industrial land. And we have experienced some things because of lack of that being available for businesses. So I'm not going to say one way or the other how I'm feeling, but I think all of that information is so important in this process, and everybody's opinion is important, and I think the residents really spoke loudly. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So we have Councillor Campbell and Your Worship and Councillor McDougall.
I don't believe in cross-talking, but I'd have to comment on what Councillor Duran was talking about, unprepared and other things. I know the McQuaid family, I know them quite well. They've developed half of Charlottetown, so I wouldn't be too concerned about what they do, and they're very respectful in their work sort of thing. So I'm assuming he would realize that when he knows he can do whatever he wants to do to develop it and satisfy everybody, he doesn't have to spend a whole lot of time preparing for the presentation. I think that's what we've seen the other night, but I would certainly support him and love to have his development. When I came here 8 years ago, we were chasing developers down the street, trying to get them to save. Now we're pushing them down the street. Anyway, I just wanted to mention it to Mr. Duran that you probably don't know the family as well as I do, which is, I just like to give you that information. That all that developed behind Towers Mall, that's his Cliff's sister doing that one. So anyway, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I just really quickly respond to that?
You certainly
And
may
that's
respond
fair
to that,
point
yeah.
taken. I guess just to respond, I guess if you're making an application or a presentation to council, I think you want to have, you know, we're not all gonna know what a developer or another may have done in other areas, or, you know, if you're making a presentation to council, you want your thoughts and your ideas on one particular development to be heard. And I have no doubts that there's fantastic developments. I know the Langell Court one is gorgeous, but, you know, if we're here in a meeting and we're to be convinced one way or another, you know, not really knowing what you're applying for doesn't really convince me. I mean, I know we're here at a second meeting to get some of these details that were asked, but that's what I meant, and I absolutely take your point and agree 100%.
So I know the Deputy Mayor wanted to comment on that, and then we'll go to the Mayor and
Sure.
Yes, just very quickly, and I thank you, Councillor Gregg, for making that point. And I guess I'm also hearing what Councillor Duran had said, and I think sometimes too, when those presentations, and we know that Mr. McQuaid is a very fine developer, but I think what I took from your comment, Councillor Duran too, and I feel that if residents have questions, they may not know that. And I think it's incumbent upon us as a council to make sure that all of the information the residents need to hear, they do hear it or see it. So, thanks.
Your Worship.
Thank you. Earlier tonight, we heard from a large number of people, residents, wanting us to find another location for housing development. And then we also have something to deal with. We need more space or new space or more space for industrial development. And presently, this land is industrial. I understand, zoned industrial.
Right. Yes.
So we got to deal with that. And so I'd like to see this go to the next council meeting and let council make a final decision on it, because it is a difficult one for council. When we compare the meetings, we need more space for housing. We want it out of there, but go find someplace else. And then we got somebody from someplace else wanting to build one, and we're saying, no, we need it for industrial. So it's an awkward situation. So, but we have to go through the process, and the next meeting is, I think you mentioned the date, that when this will go for a full vote. And you know, and if somebody comes up with more information between now and then.
March 1st.
March 1st?
Yeah.
So if somebody comes up with more information between now and then, maybe council may think it differently one way or another. I don't know, but.
Yeah, I think, well, the planning board will make a recommendation tonight, and or not, and council will have every opportunity to debate it in the open forum again, so.
So I recommend that it go
Yeah.
to the council meeting.
It
for a
it
full
certainly
vote.
will go to the council
Certainly
meeting, yeah.
Thank you. I just have two small comments. The first one is I appreciate the planning officer's comments included in the report. I had asked for that. We don't, even though the planning officer would be involved with a lot of this, most of the time, we don't usually get the planning officer's comments directly. And I think it's important when we're rezoning land that we do have that. The other thing is, this is a prime example of, and I know that we had a meeting earlier tonight, and we had something to put up on the screen, what the buildings were proposed to look like, what the driveway was to look like, what the parking was to look like. That was a concept, not necessarily saying that that's what it was gonna be, but at least it gives myself, council, and the residents a visual. And that's something that we didn't have the last time, and I think that's where but anyway, that's just a comment on my part. Thank you.
Okay, and I guess my comments would be similar, really. I put my chair of economic development hat on, and certainly appreciate the concerns that Director Mike portrays in his letter. Certainly appreciate and respect the recommendation from staff. When I look at that, I kind of like the R2 portion of it. The R4 portion concerns me a little bit along Greenwood Drive, because when I drive up Greenwood Drive, I see basically all light industrial and commercial, and I just don't know if residential kind of fits right in the middle of all that. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. So I think like a lot of you kind of struggling with where it all fits. But you know, having said that, I think everybody's had a chance to express their views. So planning board, we need to make a recommendation or not to council. The motion's on the floor there. It's been moved by Councillor Adams and seconded by Councillor Ramsey. So we can either pass that motion or defeat it. And if it's passed, it will go to council on the first with a positive recommendation from planning board. If it's defeated, it will go to the council meeting on the first, not being recommended by planning board, but still debated at open council.
So I'd like to see the recommendation that it go to council for the final vote. Is that what we're saying?
It will go to council for a final vote, but it will go without, if it's defeated, it will go without, I don't know how to word that. It will go to, without a recommendation for approval from planning board, and not recommended for approval from planning board.
It's on March 1st, right?
On March 1st. But regardless of whether it's passed or defeated, it will go to council for debate. So does everybody, planning board members, understand what we're voting on?
The only thing is, I thought we were always used to taking recommending it that it go to council for the final vote. And then at the council meeting, the council.
We had a big conversation on that 3 or 4 times, but that's changed a while ago.
Changed by whom?
Well, it was changed,
Aaron, do you want to speak to that?
maybe Aaron.
Well, Rob may be able to speak as
Oh,
far
Rob.
as your actual process, but you need to bring forward your planning board needs to bring forward a recommendation to council, either in for it or against it.
Right.
And the entire council will debate it.
We'll debate
Right.
it. So
But the planning board would be at the council meeting to vote.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Before or against.
At
it
that
there.
meeting, you'll all be council members, not planning board.
But you don't think it's convincing for a planning board to be recommending something or not recommending something before it goes to council?
it's more
That
about.
is your role as your 4 people is to, if they weren't here, you've delved into all the issues and you've made your planning recommendation.
I understand that, but let's take another issue. Are we prejudging it before it gets to full council?
You're judging it based on what you see today as planning board.
So Rob, you want to?
Yep.
I think, Your Worship, it's really more about closing the loop around the process, because with Planning Board, the 3 members of Planning Board are voting on a recommendation that's been brought forward by staff. At the council meeting, council is going to be, the entirety of council is approving or rejecting the recommendation of Planning Board.
What happens if a planning board member now voted that it not go to council, but new information comes forward between now and then, and the planning board member who voted against it or for it changes his mind?
Oh, we may all vote different than we
Yeah,
vote,
yep.
than we
Yeah.
vote here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be reflected as part of the record.
Yeah.
Yep.
So is everybody clear on what we're voting on here? Okay. So I'm gonna read the motion into the record again.
Excuse me, sir.
If we vote in favor of the motion, we're recommending to council that it be approved. If we vote against the motion, we're recommending to council that it not be approved. Okay? Understood? Okay. So the planning board recommendation, the application received from Camco Inc. for PID number 69781 to amend the city official plan from industrial land use to residential land use and the zoning bylaw from light industrial M1 zone to a mix of low-density mixed residential R2 zone and high-density residential R4 zone be recommended to be approved by council. And this was moved by Councillor Adams and seconded by Councillor Ramsey. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Against, say nay.
Nay.
Unanimously nay
At this point.
at this point. So this will go to council without the recommendation from planning board and debated at council.
Without, I thought we were voting to take a recommendation.
Yeah, with, that it not, the recommendation will be that it not be approved, but council will debate it then.
Oh, okay, that's it,
Yeah.
without, yeah.
Yeah. That's March 1st, yep. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This one is 55 Starlight Street zoning amendment. The supporting explanation, the purpose of the zoning amendment is to allow a semi-detached development, approximately 40 lots. Background, and an application was received from McDuff Property Development for PID number 615286 to amend the city zoning bylaw from agricultural A zone to low-density mixed residential R2 zone. A public meeting was held on February 16, 2022, and council gave first reading on the same date. So the map there shows the portion of the property to be rezoned, basically north of the Confederation Trail. So the report, under section 5.7 of the zoning bylaw, when planning board reviews the zoning bylaw amendment, it has to consider the following general criteria as applicable. Under section 8.4 of the Parks and Greenspace plan, the criteria B, C, E, G, and H must be considered. A, conformity with all requirements of this bylaw. Staff comment. If council approves the zoning map amendment A to R2, the applicant will be permitted to construct housing subject to the development standards of the R2 zone. A major subdivision process would be required to allow the subdivision of land. B, conformity of the official plan. Staff comment. The rezoning conforms to the official plan. The future use plan designates the land use as residential. The proposed amendment has no impact on Parks and Greenspace plan. C, suitability of the site for proposed development. Staff comment, the site can accommodate the proposed low-density R2 residential land use being proposed. D, compatibility of the proposed development with surrounding land uses, including both existing and projected uses. Staff comment, the subject property abuts two land uses, the agricultural and residential. The land to the immediate west is zoned R3. The land to the south is zoned R2. The rezoning from A to the proposed R2 would be considered compatible with the existing land uses and the projected land uses. The agricultural land to the east is also being considered for residential development. The subject property is intended for to be further subdivided and will be subject to major subdivision process upon development. And the map shows the various zones there. E, any comment from residents or other interested persons? Staff comment, the public meeting was held on February 16th, 2022. The public meeting notice was advertised in the February 1st edition of The Guardian. 18 letters were mailed to 17 property owners. Robert Duffy, McDuff Property Development, provided an overview of the development and noted that R2 housing is in demand in the city. Charles Brown, Flamingo Drive, spoke to the public meeting. He raised concerns regarding Greenspace requirements and increased traffic on Water Street East as a result of these developments. He also noted there is no detail in the public notification letter he received. Written comments, emails from residents of 739 Flamingo Drive attached to this report was received and read at the public meeting. The concerns raised were related to the increased traffic on Water Street East. Concerns raised at the public meeting have been addressed through this report. F, adequacy of existing water, sewer, road, stormwater, and electrical services. City parking parklands for accommodating the development and any projected infrastructure requirements. Staff comment, rezoning from agriculture to R2 does not have a significant change on the loading of nearby Reed's Corner lift station. The city's water supply and sewer collector systems can handle the proposed development, Starlight Estates Phase 2. The sewer main infrastructure of Starlight Estates Phase 1 accommodates the sewer flows from proposed Starlight Estate Phase 2. The sewer main stubs at the ends of Starlight Street and Logie Drive are to be extended into Starlight Estates Phase 2 to service the proposed development. The water infrastructure of Starlight Estates Phase 1 accommodates the water requirements for Starlight Estates Phase 2. The water main stubs at the end of Starlight Street and Logie Drive are to be extended into Starlight Estate Phase 2 to service the proposed development. The developer is responsible for all service and costs due to zone changes and land development. The proposed streets will be 8.8 meters width with concrete curbs to meet national and city standards. Water Street East is a collector street which handles 18,000 to 22,000 vehicles per day and will accept the additional loading. The storm drainage for this development will be outlet to the Bedeck Bay via existing Confederation Trail drainage system to Reed Creek, resulting in no additional loading on the existing infrastructure on Water Street East. Electric servicing can be extended from Starlight Phase 1 to Phase 2. The existing main trunk power line has lots of capacity for Phase 2. Phase 1 was built with anticipation of Phase 2. There is ample existing parkland, Lavergy Park, 3.9 acres, located within 700 meters of the subject development, and Wilmot Community Center, located within 1 kilometer of the subject development. Both parks are accessible by street, sidewalk, Confederation Trail networks. Parkland dedication is not required until the property is further subdivided. Council will accept monetary or land to satisfy parkland dedication. G, impacts from the development on pedestrian and vehicular access and safety and on public safety generally. Staff comment, the proposed streets will be designed to meet 50 km/h local street speed limit posted at 40 km/h based on city and national design standards. The proposed street layout will connect to existing streets layout in Starlight Estates Phase 1 and will have to allow for a future street connection to the East Starlight Phase 3. As a result of the future street connection to the east, these developments will have another connection to Water Street East for safer exiting during emergency. As a result of the rezoning, there will be a net increase to traffic flow on Water Street East by 13.7%. Includes Starlight 1, 2, and 3 and Arsenal Brothers. Water Street East can accommodate the 13.7% calculated increase. Calculations are attached to this report. The 8.8 meters street width allows for a paved street shoulder to accommodate safe pedestrian traffic. There is a sidewalk on the south side of Water Street East and the Confederation Trail. Both can be accessed from this development. So the map there shows the proposed existing street patterns in the area. H, compatibility of the development with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Staff comment, there is no compatibility issues regarding environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Impact on city's finances and budget. Staff comment, not applicable. Other matters is specified in this bylaw. Staff comment, not applicable. Other matters as considered relevant. Staff comment, the developer as a phase 1 of Starlight Estate will build the subdivision with the intent to sell the lots for development. For clarity on the information provided in the notification letters, the notification's main purpose is to indicate the public meeting date, time, location. The property being considered, it is not intended to explain the development. That is the purpose of the public meeting. Staff review, city staff support the application from McDuff Property Development to rezone from agricultural A to low-density mixed residential R2. As per section 5.10, subsection B3 of the zoning bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it's approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward to council for a final decision. And just before I read the planning board recommendation, we did receive a letter via email to Councillor Adams, and that was read into the public record at the public meeting, so no need, I don't think, to read it tonight. And as indicated, the attached traffic calculations and engineering comments are there as well. We would table those for consideration. So the planning board recommendation, the application received from McDuff Property Development for PID number 615286 to amend the city zoning bylaw from agricultural A zone to low density mixed residential R2 zone be recommended to be approved by council. And if I can get a mover and a seconder from planning board, moved by Councillor Ramsey, seconded by Councillor Adams. The floor is open for discussion.
First. Okay, so,
Councillor Adams.
so there's a lot to take in there, which is, I like having all the staff comment information. It makes it a lot easier to work your way through it. I'm just wondering, there's a street that's not mentioned in there, Ellis. Will that, like it talks about Logie and Starlight, but then it doesn't mention Ellis.
I'm not sure which one is Ellis, but on the mapping, yeah, Ellis is, Linda's Point is the cross one. The other two are the two that currently in the Starlight, although it's not seen because you can't access it. Right now, there's two stubs that go north to the trail.
Okay.
They're to be extended across the trail. Ellis, we think, is the east-west one.
That one, yes, yeah, okay, perfect. So the like, traffic is an obvious issue. It's an issue now. And hopefully in the future, we will be able to make the east-west connector more of a reality for all residents. But the thing that it struck me here is where it says about the green space, and it's 700 meters from this, but there's no sidewalks or crosswalk to get across the road there.
Yeah, and I think what the staff were noting in, I'll say the existing subdivisions that aren't widened, you just have 2 lanes of asphalt, 2 widths of asphalt and no paved shoulder. Everything that goes in that's new, you have an extra 2.5 meters that is kind of area for people to walk or be on the shoulder.
Yep.
So that's kind of the combination that's used in I'll say residential subdivisions.
Right.
But as it develops, certainly the R4 one fits your criteria as your higher density residential. That's one of your triggers for where you put new sidewalks. And then once it's developed, because the subdivision to the right is Schooner, they have a lot of R4 as well proposed. So whenever it gets developed, then the council of the day will say, well, we have the volume there to warrant where you're gonna try to make a connection. And we look to possibly bring in something up to connect those two, or bring it up to Hillside where there's a set of signals and get people to cross at the signals.
Yeah, it wouldn't have to be a lot of sidewalk, just, yeah.
So
And
there
I'm
may
not,
be,
yeah, I
in
didn't.
future, something from that development comes out,
Yeah.
and then extend the sidewalk on the north side
And then
up to
a
the intersection,
crosswalk
and then they could
across.
cross at the
Yeah.
signals. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't mean like for, there is a need for sidewalks in the actual subdivision. I just meant like out, once you get out onto
In the
Water
future
Street
though,
East.
that will be one of the locations that there's a high density of there that you see we have a lot of, say, one sidewalk heading into a pocket of subdivision. One of these will probably be a priority when it gets fully developed to say there's a high, we're saying, I think 400 units entirely in there, so there probably will be a location to pop in, as well as to allow then a connection through that subdivision up to the trail.
Yeah.
So that people that are even in the Fergie, right now they're walking down and going up Small, whereas they still could be making loops, and
Yeah.
that subdivision, new subdivision will connect and abut directly onto the trail.
Yep, no, I just, you know, people that reached out, it was probably one of the more, things that, the most calls messages, emails I've received wondering about it, and everybody said the same, they're not against development. They just, Water Street East is an issue, and they're just hopeful that in the future, because it will take a while to build it up, it's not all going to fill in overnight, but they just hope that council will really consider the east-west connector as something that might alleviate some traffic for them. So.
As it was noted by staff, this entire development, fully developed, is gonna add, what's the number, 15 or 17% or 30, you know, it's gonna be a substantial amount that's gonna come in there that is gonna add. Water Street East could still handle it, but it's still a significant number when you consider, really, there's 4 developments there together. That is gonna, it is gonna be, we're not saying it's not gonna be a lot of traffic, it is gonna be a substantial amount, but it's gonna grow over as fast as they develop it.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Snow?
What is the, and it might have said in there and I might have missed it, but what can it hold for traffic, Water Street East? What is the magic number, the way it's designed now?
It can range anywhere from 20 even up to 75,000. As far as what do you? But that's it on a collector goes from 5 to 20,000, and then an arterial goes from 10 to 75. And really, that's our main feed from anybody going east. You know, is pretty much going there. So it kind of splits in that range between those two. And right now, we're still having, I think the number was around 18,000 now.
So, and not to, I keep, because that area is growing so quickly, and we keep talking about the east-west connector, but every time I look at it, and I know we mentioned this the other night, there's another one that's supposed to branch off it, but, unless we have the one branching off it, the east-west connector, the way it's designed, won't alleviate any traffic on Water Street East unless that second branch comes off it right out to the.
It'll not alleviate it from Reed's Corner to Small, but it will alleviate it from there in.
They're in,
But it will also alleviate the ones that want to come from Small Avenue. They'll not have to come down and get onto Water Street. They can go through their own internal network and get onto that upper loop that's going to connect onto it. So some of it will be in that everything that's existing now in Small will alleviate off of, and some of their issues are getting on and off of Water Street. And but the other part is we consider is also a 2-lane road can handle a lot of traffic. But when you get to the intersections, that's where you start getting. So they did do a look and said the level of service at Hillside is still a service level A. And even with the increased volume, it'll still be a service level A. So that's another, a 2-lane traffic can handle a lot of traffic and nobody stopping, right? So when you get into the signals, those are some of the limiting factors. So that even with the increase, that intersection is still gonna be fine.
Thank you.
Councillor McDougall.
Thank you, Councillor McFeely. Just a question, and maybe I missed it in here, around the crossings for the Confederation Trail. I was under the understanding there was 1 and there was going to be 2, but I see 3 on there.
Well, we met with, the first phase of phase 1 had 2 proposed. This other subdivision to the right wasn't even contemplated at that time.
Okay.
We have 2 that exist and stuff now. We then met with the representatives of the trail of the province and advised them that this is where we are. We'll show you in the next meeting is the parcel to the right. There's no other way that we can connect. These streets here can't connect onto Small. So in order to get the accesses out, until we get into the final concepts with them, we advised them that we're gonna try and limit the crossings that we can. But in order to get a second access out of the whole area that's to the right, they need to connect over, and we already have two that are stubbed up from phase 1 of Starlight that are brought right up to the trail right now, because this other area wasn't even contemplated at that time, right here.
But they don't have that approved yet, or?
No, we've approached them and said, when we get the concepts back, we'll bring it in. The developer has had, we met as a group with the provincial representatives. They had met as well prior, and they want us to bring forward the concepts to finalize it. Yeah.
So if that is not allowed, how does that affect this concept? Like, we can't block people in, right?
And that's what they understand as well.
Okay.
We're trying to make a balance between the land. If it could be accessed some other way, we could limit it, we would. We have to provide a second access out for both of the developments.
I just,
Yeah.
Thank you.
They understood the balance between limiting the accesses, but the development has to happen in a safe manner.
That was the other night whenever we asked the developer that, and we
Yeah.
sort of explained it'd be like Gillespie and Small, how they go over
Go
the
over
trail
the trail,
now.
yeah, it's just a matter of trying to limit the
Yeah.
number that go over,
In the downtown area, yes, there is. And some of the concerns that were brought forward were regarding snowmobiles and site distances. But we've been advised by our recreation that they have suggested that area not even be open to snowmobiles, even though some people still use it.
Yeah.
The city is programming it for walking, snowshoers, and the fat biking as far as the trail system, not for snowmobiles. So there's no issue as far as the snowmobiles are coming in, they're not gonna be able to see. For the last 2 years, the city has proposed that those areas not be open to snowmobiles. Some may still go around it, or some people that are local may be using that to get out.
To get out, but that's why the snowmobiles go out by John Deere.
That's the
Yeah,
agreement we
yeah.
have with the Snowmobile Association, our interior trail system, Confederation Trails, not, they have a exterior trail system to go around.
Okay, folks, I don't see any lights on, so planning board, are you ready for the question? If so, I'll just read it into the record one more time. The application received from McDuff Property Development for PID number 615286 to amend the city zoning bylaw from agricultural A zone to low-density mixed residential R2 zone be recommended to be approved by council, and that was moved by Councillor Ramsey and seconded by Councillor Adams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried, so that will go to council on March 1st. And our final item on planning board agenda this evening, and I know people are getting tired, and we'll move through. This is very similar to the other one in many ways, but unfortunately, we need to read it into the record. So it's 815 Water Street East, zoning amendment, and the purpose, the zoning amendment is to allow for semi-detached row housing and apartment buildings, development and proposed R4 zone, approximately 50 lots. Background application was received from McDuff Property Development for PID number 6152878 to amend the city zoning bylaw from agricultural A zone to high-density residential R4. Public meeting was held on February 16th, 2022, and council gave first reading on the same date. The map, and there's a map there indicating the portion of the property to be rezoned. So the south part of the trail, you saw it on the previous map there as well. Report under section 5.7 of the zoning bylaw. When planning board reviews a zoning bylaw amendment, it has to consider the following general criteria as applicable. Under section 8.4, the Parks and Greenspace plan, the criteria of B, C, E, G, and H must be considered. And A, conformity with the requirements of this bylaw. Staff comment. If council approves the zoning map amendment A to R4, the applicant will be permitted to construct housing subject to the development standards of an R4. The major subdivision process would be required to allow the subdivision of land. Conformity with the official plan. Staff comment. The rezoning conforms to the official plan. The future land use plan designates the land use as residential. Section 5.2.2, location of high-density housing. The proposed amendment will impact the Parks and Greenspace plan. 5.2.2, location of high-density housing, and I'll just read the highlighted areas in the official plan. Council's criteria for locating high-density housing in the city of Summerside include the desirability of infilling properties which are already partly developed for higher density housing, the desirability for locating high-density housing close to jobs, community facilities, and services, and of promoting pedestrian access, and the avoidance of negative economic and physical impact on surrounding land uses, whether existing or proposed, and our objectives relating to encouraging high-density housing in specific areas. The items relating to this are number 8, the city arterial and collector roads as referenced in section 7.1 and figure 7-1. 9, consider applications for high-density housing in other areas with careful consideration of council's location criteria listed above. Greenspace section 7.32 indicates future conservation area, North Reeds Creek 820 on the map, an extension of the existing South Reeds Creek 440 on the map. Section 7.3.3 indicates Reeds Creek Greenway 790 would run from Reeds Creek Park 470 to Confederation Trail 400. C, suitability of the site for proposed development. Staff comment, the site can accommodate proposed development, high-density residential R4 land use being proposed. Compatibility of the proposed development with surrounding land uses, including both existing and projected uses. Staff comment, the subject property abuts 3 land uses: agriculture, residential, and commercial, and the land use to the immediate west is agricultural, and the proposed zone to be R2. The land use to the north is agricultural, and the land to the south is mainly R4, and some service commercial C2. The rezoning from A to the proposed R4 would be considered compatible with the existing and the projected land uses. The subject property is intended to further subdivide and will be subject to a major subdivision process upon development, and the map shows those various zones around it. E, any comments from residents or interested persons? Staff comment, a public meeting was held on February 16th. The public meeting notice was advertised in the February 1st edition of Guardian. 15 letters were mailed, 17 property owners. Robert Duffy, McDuff Property Development, provided an overview of the development and noted that housing is in demand in the city. The developer intended to create lots to accommodate a mixed of densities. Charles Brown, Flamingo Drive, spoke at the public meeting. He raised concerns regarding green space requirements and increased traffic on Water Street East. As a result of these developments, written comments, we did have emails from 739 Flamingo Drive. That's attached to this report, was already read into the public record at the public meeting. The concerns raised were related to increased traffic on Water Street East. Concerns raised at the public meeting have been addressed throughout this report. F, adequacy of existing water, sewer, road, stormwater, and electrical services, city parking, and parkland for accommodating the development and any projected infrastructure requirements. Staff comment, rezoning from agricultural to R4 does have a significant change in the sewage loading of nearby Reed's Corner lift station. This change in zoning relates to a 6.5% increase in sewage to the nearby Reed's Corner lift station. The city's water supply can handle the new development change in the zoning. The city is in the process of replacing its oldest lift station, Reed's Corner, and the new Reed's Corner lift station is designed to service the entire drainage area, including the proposed development's rezoning. This 6.5% increase in load on the station can be equated to a cost of $77,702 to the utility. The new sewer main infrastructure from Schooner Street can handle the sewage flow from the rezoning of the new development at 815 Reed Drive. The new water infrastructure from Schooner Street can handle the water requirements for the rezoning of the new development at 815 Reed Drive. The water main will be required to loop into Starlight Estate Phase 2 development when the streets are connected. The proposed streets will be 8.8 millimeters width with concrete curbs to meet the national and city standards. Rezoning this land from R4 will not add additional loading to the city's storm drainage system. The storm drain from the development will outlet the Schooner Street drainage system, which in turn outlets to Water Street East and into Reed Creek. The proposed development will require storm stubs to the future parking area for the applicable lots. Electrical service can connect to Starlight Phase 2 or to the Arsenal Brothers development from the south. There is ample existing parkland, Lafergie Park, 3.9 acres, located within 700 meters of the subject development, and the park is accessible by street, walkway, network, parkland dedication. It's not required until the property is further subdivided. G, impact from the development of the pedestrian vehicle access and safety and then public safety generally. Staff comment. The proposed street will be designed to meet a 50 kilometer an hour local street speed limit posted at 40 kilometers an hour based on city and national design standards. The proposed street layout will connect to the existing street layout in Starlight Estates Phase 1 and will have to allow for future street connection to Schooner Street. As a result of the aforementioned street connections, these developments will have another connection to Water Street East for exiting during emergency. As a result of the rezoning, there will be a net increased traffic flow on Water Street East by 13.7%. That includes Starlight 1, 2, and 3 and Arsenal Brothers. Water Street East can accommodate the 13.7% calculated increase. Calculations are attached to this report. The 8.8 meter street width allows for a paved street shoulder to accommodate safe pedestrian traffic. This is a sidewalk on the south side of Water Street East, and the Confederation Trail can be accessed from this development. The city must consider the Greenspace Plan, Section 7.3.2, which indicates a future conservation area, North Reeds Creek 820, an extension of the existing South Reeds Creek 440. Section 7.3.3 indicates the Reed Creek Greenway 780 would connect Reed Creek Park 470 to the Confederation Trail 400. This connection may be achieved by a trail system and or the street network for this development. That should be trail system. The Greenspace plan may require an amendment based on a review and consultation with community service at the time of subdivision. There's the map, the same map we saw earlier, the proposed street patterns in the area. H, the compatibility of development with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Staff comment, the city is aware of potential wetlands pond on this site which must be identified and reviewed during the design phase of development. The practice to determine a wetland buffer would require the developer and landowner to contact the Department of Environment and arrange for a site visit. The provincial watercourse alteration supervisor would go to the site and mark the wetlands buffer using flagging. The developer and landowner would be responsible to have the land surveyed, and the surveyor would collect the flagging areas delineated in as the wetland buffer. There are no compatibility issues regarding scenic or heritage resources. High impact on the city's finances and budget. Staff comment not applicable. J, other matters as specified by this bylaw. No comments from staff. K, other matters as considered relevant. Staff comment, the developer, as in phase 1, 2 of Starlight Estate, will build the subdivision with the intent to sell the lots for development. For clarity on the information provided in the notification letters, the notification's main purpose is indicate the public meeting date, time, location, and property being considered. It is not intended to explain the development. That is the purpose of the public meeting. So the staff review, city staff support the application from McDuff Property Development for rezoning from agricultural A to high-density residential R4 as per 5.10 subsection B3 of the zoning bylaw. The planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward to council for a final decision. So just before I get to the planning board recommendation, we have the letter that was sent to Councillor Adams from 739 Flamingo, which was already read into the public record, and the traffic calculations and engineering comments are attached. And with that, we will move to the recommendation. The application received from McDuff Property Development for PID number 615278 to amend the city zoning bylaw from agricultural A zone to high-density residential R4 zone be recommended to be approved by council. And if I could have a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Ramsey. Any discussion, questions? We guess we had a discussion at the last one there, so we're probably good to go here with the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion, contrary say nay. I'm ahead of myself. Contrary say nay. And motion carried. And that concludes the planning board meeting for tonight, so I would ask for a motion for adjournment. So moved.
Move, second.
Done.